Have you ever wondered how life in ancient Egypt was divided along the shores of the Nile? A fascinating question indeed, and one that takes us back in time to an era of pharaohs and pyramids. Ancient Egypt, an early cradle of civilization, was concentrated along the fertile banks of the Nile River. This magnificent civilization was divided into two distinct regions, Lower Egypt to the north and Upper Egypt to the south. Lower Egypt, situated on the Nile Delta near the Mediterranean, was a land of lush, fertile plains where the Nile fanned out into a broad estuary. The climate here was less extreme, with the Mediterranean's cooling influence tempering the harsh desert heat. Upper Egypt, on the other hand, extended south from the Nile Delta, reaching deep into the heart of Africa. This region was characterized by a narrow ribbon of fertile land, flanked by harsh, arid desert. The weather here was considerably hotter and drier, owing to its distance from the cooling Mediterranean. Now imagine a time before the unification of Egypt around 3100 BCE. Each of these regions had its own ruler, its own pharaoh, and its own distinct crown. The crown of Lower Egypt was red, adorned with symbols of papyrus and bees, symbols that represented the fertile lands and industrious people of the region. In contrast, the crown of Upper Egypt was white, marked with symbols of lotus and sedge grass. These symbols represented purity and the lush vegetation along the banks of the Nile in this region. Despite being part of the same kingdom, these two regions were quite distinct. They had their own unique geographical features, weather patterns, and even royal symbols. Each region was a world unto itself, with its own way of life and its own identity. And so it remained until around 3100 BCE, when the two regions were unified under a single ruler, marking a pivotal moment in the history of this ancient civilization. Despite being part of the same kingdom, these two regions were quite distinct, each with its own pharaoh and crown, until the unification of Egypt in 3100 BCE. Ever imagined how the crowns of ancient Egypt bore symbols of power and regional identity? In the rich tapestry of ancient Egyptian civilization, crowns were more than mere headgear. They were powerful symbols, each carrying a unique story, a narrative of the region it represented. Let's delve into the intriguing world of these crowns and their associated symbols. The crown of Lower Egypt, known as the Deshret, was a vibrant red, reflecting the fiery spirit of its people. This crown was not just a symbol of authority, but also bore emblems that represented the essence of Lower Egypt. The papyrus, a plant native to the region, was one such symbol, representing the fertile lands of the Nile Delta. The bee, another symbol, was a testament to the industrious nature of the people, buzzing with activity, mirroring the hive's unceasing productivity. On the other hand, the crown of Upper Egypt, the Hedjet, was a stark white, symbolizing the purity and spiritual depth of the region. The lotus, an emblem on this crown, was a sacred symbol in ancient Egypt, representing creation and rebirth, akin to the lotus blooming beautifully from the murky waters. The sedge, another symbol, was an indigenous grass that thrived along the Nile, embodying the resilience and vigor of Upper Egypt. These crowns were not randomly adorned with these symbols. Each was thoughtfully chosen, reflecting the unique characteristics and cultural identity of the respective regions. They were worn by the pharaohs, the living gods, who were the embodiment of the power and identity of their regions. Even the colors of these crowns were symbolic. The red of Lower Egypt's crown represented the arid desert lands, while the white of Upper Egypt's crown symbolized the purity of spiritual life. In the grand scheme of things, these crowns and symbols were not just ornamental. They were an integral part of the ancient Egyptian civilization's cultural fabric, providing a glimpse into the life, beliefs, and identity of a society that thrived thousands of years ago. These symbols and crowns were not merely decorative, but represented the unique identities of these two regions. What if we told you that rivalry wasn't just limited to sports or politics, but also extended to cities in ancient Egypt? Yes, you heard it right. The ancient Egyptians had a knack for competition, and it wasn't just confined to the pharaohs and their crowns. It permeated deep into the heart of their cities, most notably Memphis and Thebes. Memphis, situated in Lower Egypt, was not just a city, it was a symbol of power, a testament to the strength of its rulers. Closer to the Mediterranean, it enjoyed milder temperatures, a blessing for its inhabitants. But Memphis held a significance far greater than its geographical location. It was a hub of political power, the seat of the pharaohs of Lower Egypt. With the red crown symbolizing papyrus and bees, it stood as a beacon of authority. On the other hand, we had Thebes, nestled in Upper Egypt. Farther south and deeper into Africa, Thebes was a city of extremes. It bore the brunt of the African heat, but it was also a city of immense power. The pharaohs of Upper Egypt, with their white crown adorned with symbols of lotus and sedge grass, ruled from here. But the rivalry between these cities was not just about political power. It was also a battle of the gods. Each region had its own distinct religious cults, each worshipping different deities. Memphis, for instance, was known for the worship of Ptah, the god of craftsmen and architects. Thebes, on the other hand, was associated with the worship of Amun, the king of gods. This competition, however, wasn't about one city trying to outdo the other. It was about balance, about maintaining the equilibrium between the forces of nature as represented by the different gods. It was this balance that allowed ancient Egypt to thrive, to grow into one of the greatest civilizations in history. These cities were more than just places of dwelling. They were power centers, each with its own unique religious and cultural practices. They were the heart and soul of ancient Egypt, the pillars upon which this great civilization stood. Have you ever considered how architecture can represent unity and harmony? In the heart of ancient Egypt, the temples stood as a testament to this very idea. These sanctuaries, meticulously crafted and adorned, were more than just places of worship. They were a reflection of the dual nature of Egypt itself, embodying the essence of both Upper and Lower Egypt. Each temple was a marvel of architecture, designed to incorporate elements from both regions, from the lotus of Upper Egypt, symbolizing creation and rebirth, to the papyrus of Lower Egypt, representing the primeval marsh from which life emerged. The symbology of these two regions was deeply embedded in the design of these sacred spaces. The majestic temples of Memphis in Lower Egypt and Thebes in Upper Egypt in particular showcase this regional integration. The grandeur of these structures served not only as a tribute to the gods, but also as a reflection of the balanced coexistence of the two regions of Egypt. But it wasn't just the architecture that echoed this unity. The rituals performed within these temple walls also told a tale of harmony. Ceremonies often intertwined elements from both Upper and Lower Egypt, creating a beautiful tapestry of integrated rituals. Whether it was the offering of lotus flowers to the gods or the ceremonial burning of papyrus, the practices paid homage to both regions of Egypt. These temples were not just bricks and mortar, they were a symbol of unity, a testament to the desire of the ancient Egyptians to harmonize their differences. The integration of symbols, rituals, and architectural elements from both regions into a single unified structure signified the aspiration for unity amidst diversity. So next time you marvel at the grandeur of an ancient Egyptian temple, remember it represents more than just a physical structure. It's a symbol of unity, a reflection of a society's desire for harmony amidst diversity. Through their architecture and rituals, the ancient Egyptians demonstrated a desire for unity amidst their diversity. Did you know that these two distinct regions eventually united under a single rule? It was around 3100 BCE when a significant turning point in the annals of Egypt's history took place. This was the epoch that witnessed the unification of Lower and Upper Egypt, two regions that had been independent entities for centuries, each with its own pharaoh, religious beliefs, and symbols of power. This unification didn't happen overnight, of course. It was a gradual process that involved a series of political maneuvers, alliances, and yes, conflicts too. But eventually, the two regions came together under a single rule, marking the birth of one of the world's first nation-states and the beginning of the pharaonic period. The man credited with this monumental task was Nama, a pharaoh often identified with the legendary King Menes. He is believed to have merged the two kingdoms through a combination of military conquest and political marriage. His reign marked the start of Egypt's first dynasty, and he is often depicted wearing both the red crown of Lower Egypt and the white crown of Upper Egypt, symbolizing the unity of the two lands. Yet the unification of Egypt was more than just a political event. It was a cultural and religious integration as well. It brought together the diverse cultures of the Nile Delta and the southern regions, creating a unique blend of traditions and beliefs. The gods of both regions were incorporated into a single pantheon, and rituals often reflected the unity of the two lands. Symbols of power too were integrated. The pharaoh was seen as the embodiment of both regions, wearing a double crown that combined the red crown of Lower Egypt and the white crown of Upper Egypt. This symbolized his rule over the unified kingdom, bringing the lotus and the papyrus, the bee and the sedge grass, together under one emblem. The unification of Egypt marked a new era, bringing together two distinct regions under one rule, symbolizing the power of unity in diversity. This momentous event laid the groundwork for the prosperity and grandeur that Egypt would attain in the centuries to come.